Calls from Lithuania every day. I don't know what the hell this is about.
That thing isn't switching over for me, Jason.
I just hit going live, so it may switch over any second now. I forgot to hit the go live button, which is kind of an issue. So I literally just hit it. So let's see if people can.
Because I'm refreshing and I'm still on the countdown page.
All right. Well,
I'm hitting F5 to refresh.
Well, keep refreshing.
Oh, there it goes. All
right. So this is a sound check. Mic check 1 2 3. I'm just doing a quick sound check here before we get going. So you guys in the chat can let me know if you hear me.
That thing isn't switching over for me, Jason.
It is. I just hit, so it may switch over any second now. I forgot to hit the go live button, which is kind of an issue. Mute myself.
I hear you now.
All right, perfect. All right, guys in the chat, Noah can hear me. I want to make sure you can hear me, and then we're going to start our Money in the Bank review. It is 11 p.m. here on the East Coast. So again, if you can hear me, let me know in the chat, and we will begin momentarily. What's going on, Marcus Robinson? I see you in the chat, and Brian Powers, and Josh Cabral, and Carlos, and all you guys, all you crazy bastards. Thank you for joining me live here tonight. Appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you. We're going to have some fun. Take your calls a little bit later on. This is your Money in the Bank review. We're going to start here momentarily. I'm just setting things up. Just give me 1 second. Sure, we got a lot of Game of Thrones people in this chat, too. Please, no spoilers. I don't watch the show, although I probably will get around to watching it one of these days. But in case we do have people, don't be a dick. Don't spoil anything. All right, we will begin momentarily. Stand by, people. Here we go.
It's business time, baby.
The Solomonster sounds off.
My client,
Mama Monster,
conquered the street.
You like fighting a woman?
There's nothing about Monday Night Raw that is fun.
Come over here and fight me.
Delete. You haven't been beat up properly. Woo!
You know, after Sound of 600 on Friday night, I was flying high. We had a great show on Friday night. We had a whole lot of people tune in live. We had some great guests. I was in a great mood. It was a great show on Friday night. And then I watched my New York Mets get swept by the lowly Florida Marlins this weekend. And I know I should be one to talk because I'm a Mets fan, but the Florida Marlins, they suck. They are the worst team in all of baseball. And there were people going into this weekend saying, oh, well, at least the Mets, they can get back on track. They can sweep the Marlins. I mean, surely they can sweep the Marlins and try to regain some of that momentum that they've been missing. Nope. Not only did they not sweep the Marlins, they were the ones who got swept. And my happiness from Friday night immediately turned to anger. So I was waiting to see what happened with Money in the Bank tonight. I was already on edge. It would not have taken much to send me over that edge with a bad show here tonight. And I can tell you that I didn't think on the whole that this was all that bad of a show. It was a show. There was some bad. There was also some good. So I cannot sit here and crap all over this show. It was the definition of a middle-of-the-road effort. And that, honestly, is the best thing that I can say about it, highlighted by an ending that really, I can't even say it made me angry. It did more to make me laugh than anything else. So welcome. Welcome to all you Game of Thrones fans who did not watch the pay-per-view tonight and are watching this review to find out what the hell happened on this show. I got you covered. Don't worry about it. This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Money in the Bank 2019 from Hartford, Connecticut. As I said before, a show that was very much a middle-of-the-road effort. Pretty much right down the middle. If I had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, it is the definition of a show that would get a 5 or a 6 from me. And I want to know what you guys think, not just in the chat, because I can't follow along too much with everything that's being said in the chat, because there's so much being said right now. But you could also vote in our Twitter poll. It is up on Twitter at Solomonster. You can vote all throughout the show. You can vote really throughout the next 3 days. I will switch over to the poll results at the end of this review and give you all a sense of what you think of the pay-per-view. So as I am reviewing this, go ahead and vote at Solomonster on Twitter. I want to give a quick shout out to Salrex and to Steve Mello for all of their graphics help for the sound off, just in general, not just tonight, but in general. Two of the most talented on the internet when it comes to this stuff are Salrex and Steve Mello, and I want to give them a shout out. I also want to mention that super chats are open. They should be anyway. If you would like to make a donation, if you would like to contribute, you can do so. You are not required to do so, but you can. We had a lot of people donate during Sound Off 600, the live stream the other night, who I did not get a chance to acknowledge because I was so wrapped up in the show. This is a one-man operation here, pretty much. Although shout out to Noah Mark, who is screening calls for later on in the show. But I do appreciate the hell out of everybody who did contribute, even though I didn't get to shout you out. So if you would like to donate, I'm just mentioning it now, the super chats are open. I will try to shout you out if I can throughout the night. And when you guys fill those phone lines up a little bit later, it auto charges to my account, which is why every little bit helps with these super chats. And also why, before we move on, I just have to say that this video is sponsored by The Ridge. Now, many of you will remember The Ridge because I've mentioned them before here on this YouTube channel. You guys have heard me talk about them. I own a couple of their wallets myself. It is a slim front pocket wallet, RFID blocking technology that protects you from data theft. They come in titanium, aluminum, carbon fiber, over a dozen different styles and colors. You can get a money clip with it. You can get a cash strap. I have one in a money clip form, one in a cash strap form. Completely your choice. This is probably half the size, or even more, of your current wallet. It is not a flimsy product at all. It's a quality product. And right now you can get 10% off your first Ridge wallet with free worldwide shipping. All you got to do, you can see it on screen right now, go to ridge.com/Solomonster. And make sure you use the promo code Solomonster at checkout. Again, that is ridge.com/Solomonster to get 10% off, courtesy of the Sound Off. Ooh, Solomonster sounds off. Kickoff match. Let's get right into this here. The kickoff match was Rowan and Daniel Bryan, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, in a non-title match against the Usos. Very good match. Very good match. Rowan hit a double superplex from the middle rope on both Usos at one point, which was pretty impressive. Jey Uso off the top for a Samoan splash, but Daniel Bryan turned it into the label lock. Jimmy broke it up. Usos take care of Rowan on the outside. Bryan goes for a tope, eats a super kick, double Samoan splashes to the former WWE champion, who gets pinned here on the pre-show. From defending the WWE title at WrestleMania to losing on the pre-show in a tag team match. Wasn't even Rowan who ate the pin. It was Daniel Bryan. Bryan is a man who, and if you read his book, you know this already, this man has no ego. Actually, in the book, he tells a story about the ambition test. He has no ambition. He has no ego. Apparently, he thinks nothing of himself. He is willing to do whatever they tell him to do, and if that means you lose in a situation like this and put other people over, well, then so be it. Lots of men who have held that WWE Championship would have kicked up a fuss if they were asked to do what he did here, but not Daniel Bryan. At least I don't think he did. I mean, I guess I can't say for sure. But it would shock me to find out that he did put up a fuss. So again, a good match. I still think it's incredibly stupid. Dumb to have a superstar shakeup and move the Usos to another brand, only to have them come back to their old brand and beat the champions and put themselves in a position now to challenge for the SmackDown Tag Team titles, a brand that they are no longer officially on. I just think it is just a dumb, stupid, short-sighted move. It's literally a case where they are booking by the seam of their pants. They are booking on the fly. Or Vince McMahon is, I should say. So yeah, we got a great match out of it. Or a very good match, but it just confused the hell out of me. I have no idea what they're doing, and I don't think they do either. Show opened with a women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Nikki Cross replacing the injured Alexa Bliss. Bayley, Ember Moon, Naomi, who is dressed like a bumblebee for some reason. Carmella, Natalya, Mandy Rose, and Dana Brooke. We had Carmella reaching down for the ladder at one point. Mandy Rose either kicked the ladder or stepped on the ladder, which somehow, I guess it bumped into Carmella. It led to Carmella looked like she twisted her knee. And instantly it looked like she was hurt. Mandy tried to keep working, and Carmella kept shoving her away and telling her to leave me alone, which of course is what you want to say in the middle of a Money in the Bank match. Somebody's coming after you. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. So she exits the ring, and she is supposedly injured and is helped to the back. The match continues. We have Mandy and Natty sandwiching Bayley in the ladder, smashing her multiple times. Actually, what I just said sounds incredibly sexual. Sandwiching Bayley and smashing her, but that's not what I mean. You guys know what I mean. Naomi gave Bayley a split-legged moonsault on another ladder, so this was a bad time for Bayley here in the middle of this match. Now, Dana Brooke had her chance to shine. She climbed the ladder. She was fighting with Mandy on top. Dana was hanging from the cable, swaying back and forth, which, as somebody who is afraid of heights, anytime I see somebody doing that, it just makes me feel very uncomfortable. She's braver than I am. She couldn't pull it down. She could not pull down the briefcase. A bunch of other women joined them on the ladder before Natty tipped them all over. Ember Moon, she was waiting on top of another ladder. This one was set up outside the ring, and she dove in. She flew in, hit the Eclipse on Natty. Mandy then gave Ember her finish on one of the ladders, was setting up the ladder to win. This was Mandy's to lose here. When Carmella hobbled back down to the ring, laid her out, and Carmella then started climbing the ladder when Sonya Deville ran down and stopped her, speared her out of her shoes. Not literally, although we would see somebody lose their shoes later on in the pay-per-view. I'll get to that. And she was helping She was helping Mandy up the ladder. She put her on her shoulders, and she was carrying her up the ladder. And just before Mandy could reach up and unhook the briefcase, Bayley scurried up the ladder, shoved both of them off the ladder, pie-faced them off, unhooked the briefcase, and Bayley is Miss Money in the Bank. And you know what? There were definitely some rough spots here in this match, but I thought this was enjoyable enough. You know, there were some fun spots worked in there, especially the double pie face off the top by Bayley there at the end. I would not call this a great match, by no means. Like I said, there were some rough spots, but I thought it was still enjoyable, and the effort was certainly there. These women were practically killing each other trying to get this match over. Bayley cut a promo after the match in the ring where Charlie Caruso got a fair amount of boos, even though she got a big pop for the win. Fickle fans. Daniel Bryan knew exactly what he was talking about. Very fickle. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Again, we are live here on YouTube, so I just want to shout everybody out who is listening. We have over 1,300 and counting listening right now to the official Money in the Bank review. We go now to Rey Mysterio and Samoa Joe for the United States Championship. Rey hit a seated senton off the ropes by, I would say this was maybe, a couple minutes in, if that, into the match. Hit a seated senton off the ropes and busted Joe's nose up pretty good. I don't know if he broke it or not, but Joe's nose started bleeding. Not long after, Joe set Rey up for a powerbomb. Rey reversed into a Hurricane Rana, into a pin for the win. And the first United States Championship of his career. Even though on the replay, Joe's shoulder was... Joe's shoulder wasn't just up off the mat. It was clearly up off the mat. And they pointed it out, the announcers did. Basically, they pointed out the fact that the ref was a moron. They didn't say that, but that's what they implied. And, it's hard to believe that in his entire career, and Rey Mysterio's career dates back to WCW. I mean, it dates back even before that. But you go back to his days in WCW, right? He was a cruiserweight champion. I think he was a tag team champion. His career in WCW. His career in WWE. He was WWE champion. World heavyweight champion. Intercontinental champion. Cruiserweight champion. Mysterio never once held the U.S. title. Until now. Joe was furious. Blood smudged across his face. He looked like he could murder somebody. And he did. He beat up Rey when the match was over. Only, though, after Rey's son Dominic came down to celebrate with his father as they were walking up the ramp Joe came back out, attacked Ray, threw him into the ring, gave him a pair of Uranages, a running senton, all while taunting Dominic. Dominic he was helpless, looking on from the outside. He wouldn't get in the ring. And Joe never touched him. Joe never did touch Dominic. They're building to it. They're building to Dominic fighting back, and it will be glorious when Samoa Joe lays waste to Dominic. And I said this on the Sound Of. I said this is leading at some point to an eventual match. Not just a confrontation, a match between Samoa Joe and Dominic. Dominic, for those who don't know, started training last year under Lance Storm. And I can't think of a better person to train under than Lance Storm. And rumor has it, this is not confirmed, but rumor has it that Dominic has already officially been signed to a WWE contract. And so this was really more of an angle than a match, even though we got a title change out of it. And I liked it. I don't know how you guys felt, but I liked it. Joe beat Ray in 60 seconds? If that, at WrestleMania. So Ray returns the favor, and the feud continues. So I actually enjoyed this. We found Sami Zayn hanging upside down backstage. Maybe he's a bat. Maybe he's Batman. Maybe he was just getting his beauty sleep. They all rushed in like something was wrong, and we see him hanging upside down. Now, he had told Triple H earlier in the night that he was afraid that Braun Strowman was out to get him. Triple H told him, don't worry, Braun has been banned from the building. Of course, later on, we see Braun Strowman backstage on a rampage throwing shit around. And so they wanted you to think, obviously, that it was Braun who did this to Sami. And maybe it'll end up being that it was. Later on, though, Triple H did confront Braun, and he said, look, I'm banning you from the building. So at this point, we knew they had a spot open in the men's Money in the Bank match. And my first thought, as I know it was for many of you, was Bray Wyatt. That was my first thought, although Bray Wyatt and JoJo just celebrated the birth of their child within the last, 24 to 48 hours. So that would have been a little tough, I think, to get Bray on this show. But that was my first thought anyway. We had Shane McMahon against The Miz in a steel cage match. This match was so exciting. People were so into this match that they were chanting CM Punk and AEW at the beginning of this match. They were faint, but they were there. Shane tried to exit through the door. He couldn't, but he does manage to grab a steel chair, so he brings that into the ring. Miz gets possession of the chair. He lays waste to Shane McMahon with the chair. Skull-crushing finale on Shane. On the chair. And he goes for the pin, but Shane gets his foot on the bottom rope for a rope break in a steel cage match, which the announcers pointed out, of course, is completely asinine. So that makes 2 straight matches at this point on this show where the referees are singled out for being idiots. Crowd start to bullshit chant. Miz then tries for a super skull-crushing finale off the top rope, but Shane counters. Tries to climb out of the cage, but Miz catches him up top. Shane is just dangling over the cage. And he's hanging upside down. Miz just dumps him all the way down into the ring. Miz then covers. Actually, before he covers, he delivers the world's worst frog splash. This was awful. I mean, we have a few different people on the roster who sometimes will hit frog splashes. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm sorry. I'm completely wrong. Actually, you know what? I don't know if it's a frog splash. What is it that Tamina does? Would that be considered just a superfly splash? I guess it would be a superfly splash, right? That's different than a frog splash. Because Tamina, by far, in my opinion, Tamina has the worst splash of anybody in this entire company, which is absolutely shocking to me, given that her father, for all of his faults, was known for what? What was he known for? Well, besides, probably murdering somebody. Besides that, what was Superfly Jimmy Snuka known for, right? He was known for that. He was known for the coconut. And he was known for delivering the Superfly Splash. You would think his daughter would somehow carry on that legacy, and she has, but in the worst possible way, because she fucking sucks whenever she tries to deliver a splash. I don't get it. So Miz delivered one here. It was pretty bad, and got a near fall out of it. Shane gets tossed basically from the top of the cage here in the spot that I just mentioned, and he kicks out. He is Superman. Superman Shane, who then, after all this, puts Miz in a triangle. Shane could have been a star in the UFC. Still could be. I'm all for it if it gets him off WWE television. Miz gets out of the triangle. Shane tries to escape again. Miz catches him, tries to suplex him from the top of the cage, but Shane resists, and eventually he slips out of his own shirt, and he falls to the floor for the win. Yes, Shane McMahon has now beaten The Miz 2 straight on pay-per-view. What a loser. What a loser this guy is. Yeah, and they'll say, well, the story is Miz, and he had Shane beat in both matches. That's the story they're telling here. Miz looked strong, but it was Shane who had the advantage. And that may well be true. That may well be the story that they're trying to tell here. But the reality is still that Miz lost to Shane 2 straight. He's a loser. Got to keep Shane strong, I guess, for the big dog. On top of that, the match was not really that good. As cage matches go, I thought this was boring. So I didn't like this. Looking over in the chat right now, we got a lot of people listening right now. So shout out to everybody who is listening here live on YouTube. I mentioned this earlier for those who are interested. Super chats are open if you would like to make a donation or get a shout out or something here on the show. So just be aware of that those are open. We had an advertisement for Mick Foley. Mick Foley will be on Raw tomorrow night to announce WWE's newest championship. That's all they've said. They said Mick Foley is going to be on Raw to announce WWE's newest title. My first thought is like many of yours, I'm sure. I immediately thought of the hardcore title. I immediately thought of the 24/7 rule. And to me, that's what it needs to be. That is the only acceptable answer to this. It has to be the hardcore title 24/7. Why else have Mick Foley be the one to come on the show and do the announcement? I have no interest in anything else. 24/7 hardcore rules, more matches in ball pits and arcades. That's all I ask for. Now, Timothy tweeted me during the show. He suggested, well, this is probably a wild card title. And you know what? That probably is a lot more likely than what I just suggested. Probably exactly what they're going to do. Come up with a bullshit title for a bullshit concept. Makes sense to me. But I guess we'll find out tomorrow night. They aired an NXT advertisement with the Velveteen Dream front and center, but we didn't know initially that it was an NXT ad until the very end. And for a good 30 seconds there, I thought he was being called down to the main roster. And my heart sank. Then I saw that he wasn't, and it was just an NXT advertisement, and I was relieved. Such is the state of WWE today. We had Tony Nese against Arya Daivari. Shockingly, this Cruiserweight Championship match was not relegated to the pre-show. It was on the main card. Unfortunately, people just didn't give a shit. And that is the state of 205 Live these days. People just did not care. And Tony Nese retained here in what I thought was a pretty good match, but it was hard to get people into this. Daivari at one point kicked out of a 450 splash. He hit his own splash off the top, hit a lariat for a near fall, followed by the running Nese by Tony Nese for the win. Look, there was no way that Nese was losing here. He just won the championship at WrestleMania. They were building to that for a while. There was absolutely no reason for him to lose. So the outcome, to me anyway, was never in doubt. The match was fine, but just people didn't care. We had Becky Lynch in the first of 2 championship defenses on this show, defending her Raw Women's Championship against Lacey Evans, the sassy Southern Boar. Lacey had the moment. She had the moment that she first punched Becky on TV, illustrated on her boots. Now, it's not quite Rick Rude airbrushing the wife of his opponent on his ass, but it was still, I would give her points for creativity. As far as the match, nothing special about this. I mean, Lacey was fine. You know, she played her part fine, and there weren't any big, botches or anything like that. But this was the definition of a Raw match. This was a Raw TV match. Chop block by Lacey Evans late in the match. She rolled up Becky after this chop block for the pin. She had her down for what felt like forever. The referee was out of position. So a million years go by. Becky's shoulders her down before finally she reverses it into a disarmor for the quick tap out. Now that makes 3 matches on this show so far highlighted by referee incompetence. I don't know if this is leading to some kind of an angle where the referees are admonished on television, or if they just really want us to think that their referees are a bunch of fucking idiots. But if that's the point, hey, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. So Becky wins her first match. Charlotte immediately comes down smiling. She's all smiles. She's ready. She's ready for her match. And so they go right into it. No rest for Becky. SmackDown Championship on the line. Becky Lynch against Charlotte Flair. Probably, not even probably, the worst of all of the matches that I have seen these two in. And they've had some really good matches. In fact, maybe the favorite one that they had that I can recall was from the Evolution pay-per-view last year. That was a really good match that those two had. This was the opposite. And not because, it had nothing to do with the work. It was just short and just a nothing match. It was quick. Just a quick way to get to where they were going post-match. It was a setup for the post-match. Lacey Evans runs down, hits the woman's right to Becky through the ropes. Referee didn't see because, remember, the referees are idiots. Charlotte goes for it looked like she was going for a Beck-sploder, but instead Becky reversed into a cradle for a very near fall. Charlotte gets up, big boot to the face missed by about 6 inches, but we'll call it a big boot. And she gets the pin. So the finish, call it botched if you want to. It didn't look great, but she gets the pin. And Charlotte is now a 9-time women's champion. You figure what? 3, maybe 3 more years to pass her father in total title reigns? I figure about 3 years. So Becky 2 belts is no more. Becky goes after Lacey. Charlotte attacks her. They double team her until Bayley runs down. Charlotte goes after Bayley and attacks her. Flair goes after Bayley some more, but Bayley throws her into the turnbuckles. And Bayley decides, you know what? I'm going to cash in my money in the bank. So the referee calls for the bell, and Bayley officially cashes in. She hits the Randy Savage elbow off the ropes. This was very quick, very brief. And she scores the pin to win her first SmackDown Women's title. And let me amend what I just said a moment ago. I said 3 years before Charlotte passes her father. After this, let's say 2 years. Won't take her very long to get to number 17. This did not have the story. This did not have the emotion behind it that Bayley's women's title win had 4 years ago in NXT. But the crowd loved this. This was as loud a crowd has been for Bayley maybe since she's come up to the main roster. People were cheering and they were so happy for her. And for her, it was a great moment. Maybe the best moment that she's had so far in the main roster. And the story of her run on the main roster has not been a good one. Bayley had something special about her in NXT. And a lot of people thought, well, when she comes up to the main roster, she's perfect for the PG product. It won't be very hard to get this woman over as your next big female star. And we know what happened. The booking happened. Didn't quite go her way. And Bayley has just been buried 6 feet under by the booking since she has been on the main roster. And that might sound weird because she was one half of the very first ever women's tag team champions. Some people might say that. Hey, Solomonster, how can you say that? This woman was one half of the first ever, which is not true, women's tag team champions. And that's true. But what else has Bayley done?
Hello?
What else has Bayley done? Hello?
Hello?
We have
Hello?
We have an intruder here on the line. CJ, is that you? I don't know who that is. Is that CJ? I don't know who that is. Well, we'll have to, we'll come back to him a little bit later. Anyway, we have people hijacking the show here. We're live, so anything could happen here today. We may have people butting in. You never know who may call in. Again, thank you to everybody in the chat. We got so much activity going on. Again, feel free to chime in with your thoughts on the pay-per-view here tonight. And that threw me off here. We're taking calls later on. I promise you we're going to get the phone number up on the screen a little bit later. But anyway, somebody got through. So in any event, I was talking about Bayley. So the story of Bayley's run on the main roster has not been a good one. It is the polar opposite of how things were for her in NXT. I felt happy for her tonight. I felt like this was a good moment for her. It was a good moment for her that was long overdue. I have nothing against Bayley. She seems like a perfectly fine person. She has been somewhat caught in the crossfire by all of the Sasha Banks nonsense because there have been times on TV where she's been booed, and I do wonder if that has to do with the situation with Sasha, whose name sometimes when she's mentioned on TV will be booed, and maybe some of that's rubbing off on Bayley. That's not Bayley's fault at all. So for her to get this moment tonight, I thought was very cool. But I'm watching this, and I cannot help but think that this also just, the reason this was done, it felt like a way to just send a message to Sasha Banks, who you know is watching or is going to hear about this. You know, Bayley's one of her best friends. I'm sure she's very happy for Bayley. But to me, this felt like a message sent to Sasha. This could have been you. If you were willing to play ball and come back to work, this could have been you on that ladder as Ms. Money in the Bank. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't think I am. I think there was a message in here for sure. But again, I was happy for Bayley. It was a moment that she was in desperate need of. And she is now the women's champion. Now, of course, as with everything, the key is in the follow-up. The key is in the booking. We've had people win championships and get booked into oblivion before. This could be a fresh start for her. It's all going to depend on the booking going forward. Roman Reigns against Elias. Roman Reigns was on his way down to the ring. He was in the back, and we see Elias sneak up on him, and he smashes a guitar across Roman's back. Elias comes out. He performs. He goes to leave. Roman comes out, hits a Superman punch, throws him into the ring, hits one spear for the win. And you know what? It was about as long as it needed to be. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was clamoring for a Roman Reigns Elias match. And if you say you were, you're lying. I don't believe you. So this was quick. This was painless. The outcome was never in doubt. It was inoffensive. And it was what it was. Seth Rollins and AJ Styles. Forget Roman Reigns and Elias. You want to talk about matches that I was looking forward to going into the show? This was the match I was looking forward to going into the show. The first ever singles match in WWE between Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, which is hard to believe, given, AJ's already been in the company now for 3 years. And maybe they've been in tag team matches and stuff like that. But the first time that we've seen these two in a singles match in a WWE ring, this was for the Universal Championship. The only singles match that these two have ever had before was back, I want to say, 2006. I know it was well over a decade ago. They had an NWA match on the independent scene. AJ Styles and Tyler Black. And that's it. So this was a first. And surprise, surprise, these two worked really well together. I expected nothing less. Seth Rollins has wanted this match for so long, for so many years. There was no way he was going to let this effort be a dud. And they had an excellent match. Rollins hit an inverted superplex off the top rope. He rolled through into a modified Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Rollins went for the curb stomp. AJ countered into the calf crusher. And then one of the biggest spots of the match was a curb stomp attempt by Seth Rollins that was just beautifully countered into a Styles Clash for a near fall. Very close near fall. AJ goes for a phenomenal forearm. Rollins dodges it, hits the ripcord knee. AJ's down on his knees, gets hit with a super kick and a curb stomp. And Seth Rollins retains the Universal Championship in what I thought was an excellent match. I was very happy to not see Brock Lesnar interfere to set up the likely match in Saudi Arabia. Although that would come later on in the night, little did I know. But at the time, when this was over, I was like, phew. Yeah, I was doing my predictions on the show with JD the other night, and he was convinced that Brock was interfering, and I was relieved to see that he did not. Now, I suspect that we will also see The Undertaker and Bill Goldberg pop up on TV in the weeks to come to promote their match as well on that Saudi show in Jeddah. I shouldn't say Saudi Arabia. This match is taking place in Jeddah. You would think Jeddah is the name of a country, the way that WWE is promoting this. You notice how they are terrified to say the words Saudi Arabia. It's always Jeddah, Riyadh, never Saudi Arabia. They have no problem taking their money, but saying the name of the country, that is apparently off limits. It's comical to me. AJ extends his hand to Rollins. He wants a handshake, and Rollins accepts. like a good sport. And that was it. And I know some of you were probably surprised that we didn't get an appearance by by Anderson and Gallows. Because I know that there were people who were thinking, well, Anderson and Gallows are going to come out and it's going to be like a club reunion. And they're going to either come out when the match is over, or they're going to interfere in the match, or something to that effect. And to me, at no point did I expect them to come out. And I said this when I did my predictions, because Anderson and Gallows, supposedly, they have refused every effort by WWE to sign them to a new contract. Their deals supposedly are up in September. And WWE, much like with the Revival, has tried to sign them probably to one of these 5-year contracts. And they have said no. And I applaud them for that. Far be it from me to sit here and tell them what they should do with their careers. Sign this contract, don't sign that contract. I can only go by the things that I hear. It's the same things that you people hear. It's the same things that you read. And it goes beyond the dirt sheets and the websites. We see it in real time. We see people asking for their releases. Some get it, some don't. There's a lot of discontent right now behind the scenes in WWE. And I don't need to have backstage sources, and I don't need to be working for the company, and I don't need to be in the backstage area to know this. You know why? Because I have common sense. I can hear things, I can see things just like everybody else, and I don't need anybody to tell me that there is a lot of discontent in that locker room right now. For every person who's happy with their job and happy with their position, there's also a lot of people who are not. And Anderson and Gallows are two of those people. And why wouldn't they be? Look at the way that they have been used. Look at the way that they have been booked since they came to WWE. There was some hope at first, right? They were with AJ. They had the club. They had something going when they initially came in. And then it all seemed to go straight to hell. And I'm not quite sure why, other than maybe they just got bored with them. But these guys, believe me, they want to be doing more than just sitting and catering every week. They want to do more than just having a match on Main Event every single week. Why would they agree to sign a new contract with AEW sprouting up? And not even AEW. They can go back to New Japan. You don't think New Japan would welcome them back with open arms? It would be ridiculous for them to sign a long-term contract with this company, given the way that they have been used. So I never expected them to be on TV tonight, because they're not going to do anything with them so long as they don't sign a new contract. And why the hell would they? We had the Lucha House Party came out, talk about something. What they talked about, I couldn't tell you. I was barely paying attention to what they were saying. Lars Sullivan came out. He destroyed each one of them one by one. He headbutted Kalisto so hard he busted himself open. He had blood running down his head. It's kind of like Goldberg. When Goldberg, what did Goldberg do to bust himself? Didn't he hit himself? Or Goldberg? I think Goldberg headbutted a locker in the back or something. He was on TV that one time and his head was bleeding. So Lars busted himself open. He hit a running powerbomb on Kalisto, wiped him out. I thought the blood actually made him look even more badass. A little bit of color goes a long way. And this was just designed to give him more bodies to beat up. At some point, this guy has to start a program with somebody. Might I suggest Hunico? Well, actually, I guess he's not Hunico anymore. He's Sin Cara. Sin Cara has made his thoughts very clear on Twitter, what he thinks of Lars Sullivan. I think it would be very interesting to put Lars Sullivan in a program with Sin Cara. Things might get very bad very quickly for Lars Sullivan. But I think the smaller the guy, the better for Lars. I think he is at his most impressive when he's bouncing guys around. But at some point, one of these guys has to fight back and get some offense in. We have Kevin Owens challenging Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Cameraman got wiped out early on in this match. When Kofi was on the apron, Owens grabbed him by the head. He ran him into the post, into the turnbuckle. And when Kofi fell off the apron, he took out the camera guy, who took a bump. Later on, Owens hit a frog splash. Actually, right after this, Owens hit a frog splash off the apron to the floor. Fast forward a little bit, Kofi gives Owens a jumping double stomp on the apron, which is the hardest part of the ring, as the announcers pointed out, for those of you who did not already know this. The apron is, in fact, the hardest part of the ring. We had a twisting dive from the top rope out to the floor by Kofi, who gets caught with a super kick on his way down. Owens rolled him inside for a 2 count. Pop-up powerbomb by Owens for a near fall. Trouble in Paradise connects, but Owens falls out of the ring, unfortunately for Kofi. Back inside, Owens hits a stunner. Kofi is close enough, though, that he grabs the bottom rope. Owens then, a very peculiar thing happened here. Kevin Owens decided he's going to pull off Kofi's sneakers. I mean, I guess he figured maybe if he tried to go for the Trouble in Paradise again, it wouldn't hurt as much. I don't know. But he pulled his shoes off. Maybe he has a foot fetish. Foot fetish Kevin Owens is going to be his new gimmick. He and Rex Ryan have something in common. We had a cannonball off the top, a cannonball attempt anyway by Owens, but Kofi got his knees up. Kofi hits the Trouble in Paradise, and this time he picks up the 3 count. The Kofi Kingston run continues as I thought it would, and I think it should. You know, I think it still has legs. So I think you run with it a little bit longer. And, you know, look, for all the faults we can find with WWE, and there's a lot of them. You hear it from me every single week, this wild card bullshit. My God, I can go on forever with that. But for all of the bad stuff, I have to give them credit. And they've done a good job, I think, of keeping Kofi strong. With wins now over Daniel Bryan, twice, one at WrestleMania, one on Raw. Sami Zayn and AJ Styles in that triple threat match on SmackDown a few weeks ago. And now, Kevin Owens. So I don't know how much longer Kofi is going to have the championship for. I can't tell you how long this miracle run is, if it's going to go another month, if it's going to go to SummerSlam. I can't imagine it goes longer than that. I don't know the answer, but I will give them credit. I will give them credit for it being a pretty successful run for him so far. So, again, shout out to everybody who is listening. Well over 2,100 of you listening live right now. And so you know, we are going to be taking your phone calls when I'm done here reviewing the main event. And in just a moment here, you will see the phone number on your screen. It's the same number from the other night, 989-282-7656. That's 989-282-SOLO for Solomonster. That is the number to call if you would like to call in. We're taking your Money in the Bank calls tonight, so try to keep it limited to Money in the Bank, if at all possible. Your thoughts about the show, the positives, the negatives, what you thought about the pay-per-view tonight. And when the main event is done here, we will take your calls. And shout out to the people who have sent in super chats. I very much appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you. Again, as we take more phone calls tonight, this is not a free effort here. It was funny, when the show was over the other night, I did the live stream on Friday. We went 5 hours, which I did not expect to do. And I was trying to get as many calls in as I could. And the way the service is set up, I just said, look, auto bill me. Whenever my balance runs down, I don't want any interruptions during the live show, even though Skype fucked me over at one point. But I said, I'm going to set it up and just bill me. Bill me whatever it is, however many calls it is. And then, of course, when the show is over and I go and I see how much they've billed me, I wanted to cry. I did cry a little bit on the inside, but it was worth it. And we'll take more of your calls in a little bit. Men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Randy Orton, Finn Balor, Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, Ricochet, Andrade Cien Almas, Mustafa Ali, and, well, we didn't have a mystery man because Sami Zayn was taken out earlier in the night, and so they just started the match with Adam with 7 instead of 8. And we had 4 stars from SmackDown and 3 stars from Monday Night Raw. And if I can just say this, I thought it was really cool to see Ali in a pay-per-view main event. He was, and I know he was in a WWE Championship match a few months ago at whatever the show was it Fastlane or whatever it was in March, but that wasn't the main event, I don't think. It was cool to see him in a true pay-per-view main event because he was supposed to be in the Elimination Chamber back in February. Daniel Bryan supposedly went to bat for this guy behind the scenes. The reason for Ali's big push and him leaving 205 Live and coming to SmackDown, Daniel Bryan had a lot to do with that. Because Ali is very talented. He's very likable. Those promos, when he was out hurt, and you saw some of those promos on TV, the very well-produced promos, he was responsible for that. He got together with a friend of his who I think was an independent wrestler and put them together, and they were just quality stuff. So I'm a big fan of his work. But he got hurt, and he didn't have a chance to be in the Elimination Chamber, and that's when the Kofi revolution began. Kofi took his spot, and Kofi Kingston just took off. But Ali is really good, and he deserves to be in the spot that he's in. Now, he may not win a world title anytime soon. He may not win one ever. But he deserves to be hanging with the big boys. He is that good, so I was very happy to see him in this match. Match gets going right away, all action. Randy Orton, he sure does love dumping people on the announce table. First it was Ali, then it was Balor, then Ricochet, all the little guys. He made sure to pick them up and dump them on the announce table. And that got him loud chants of Randy Orton. Not quite as loud as when Meatloaf was on Raw and he was shouting, Randy Orton! It wasn't anything like that, but the people were into Randy here. There was a crazy spot. This to me was just the absolute most insane spot, not just of the match, but of the entire pay-per-view. So there's a ladder in the ring, and there's a ladder bridge. So there's two ladders in the ring. And Andrade is on one side, and Finn Balor is on the other. And Andrade does a sunset flip powerbomb. And he delivers a sunset flip powerbomb to Finn Balor onto the ladder bridge. And Balor bounced. He bounced, I don't know what, a foot, 6 inches, whatever it was. He bounced off of that ladder. They got a yowie wowie chant from the crowd. Yowie wowie, more like yowie owie. Oh my God. Ali hit a spike Rana to Ricochet. A few minutes later, he hit a Spanish fly to Andrade off the ladder. This guy's crazy. This guy's insane. Baron Corbin. Talk about a come down. We talk about Ali. We're talking about Ricochet, and then we come to Baron Corbin. He chokeslams Ali through the Spanish announce table to chants of "You still suck." Corbin then turns on McIntyre. He slams Balor on the ladder, but the ladder was sitting upright. This was in the ring. I don't know if it was a choke slam or what it was, but he slammed Finn Balor onto the ladder. The ladder, though, was not flat. The ladder was laying on the mat, but it was upright. That looked like it fucking sucked. And you know, the thing about these Money in the Bank matches, some of them are better than others. But these guys just absolutely wreck their bodies each and every single time. And you got to show respect for that. Even for Baron Corbin. Yes, Baron Corbin. Applebee's extraordinaire. The abuse that these guys take, that this company benefits from. And they totally benefit from it. They market a whole pay-per-view around it. Bodies are going to be broken. People are going to be destroyed. They're going to take risks. People are going to bleed. And it means more money for this company. They're sitting in the back, meanwhile, in the gorilla position. They got their headset on. They're watching on a little monitor. They're not the ones out there putting their bodies through hell. It's these guys. And this company makes a lot of money off the bodies of these people. So let us not forget that. No matter how jaded we may get, and no matter how jaded I might get, that is something that when I watch this match, I don't forget that. Finn Balor then gets suplexed onto a ladder by Drew McIntyre. McIntyre then propelled Ricochet out of the ring through a ladder bridge on the outside, so he crashed and burned through the ladder. Randy Orton, meanwhile, yanked Drew McIntyre off the ladder, caught him in an RKO on the way down. Baron Corbin knocks Orton out of the ring. He tries climbing. Ali stops Corbin, jumps on his back, gets him out of the ring. Ali is all alone in the ring. He is climbing the ladder when all of a sudden, Brock Lesnar's music hits. Lesnar runs down. He shoves over a bunch of ladders in the aisleway. He kills more cameramen or photographers or whatever the hell they were. Whoever it was, he didn't seem to give a shit. He shoves the ladder over. Nobody else is around. He sets it up. He climbs to the top. He unhooks the briefcase. And yes, Brock Lesnar, for the first time, is Mr. Money in the Bank. Finn Balor and Ricochet died so that Brock Lesnar could get some of that sweet Saudi money. Because I have no doubt that he will likely cash in, since that is the rumored match. I'm guessing Brock is going to cash in and challenge Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship in Saudi Arabia on June 7th. This match was insane for some of the bumps and some of the risks, and it was pretty much all action. So I actually thought this was a pretty great Money in the Bank match until the finish. I was not a big fan of the... I mean, look, it's cool to see Brock, but when you really take a step back and you look at the fucking effort that these people put in and the abuse that they take, all for Brock Lesnar to run out and be in the match for what? 30 seconds? Big smile on his face. Sits up there with the briefcase in hand. I can't get behind that. I think there's a role for him in the company. I still think there is value in keeping him around, but I don't know. The idea of watching all these guys, all these full-time performers just bust their ass and kill themselves for this fucking guy to come out here and just, steal the win the way they booked it for him to do at the end, I just thought was just bullshit. So I was not a big fan of this finish, but the match itself I thought was actually pretty great. And so when I look back at this pay-per-view, and I think to myself, what did I think of the show on the whole, quality-wise, scale of 1 to 10? I said earlier, scale of 1 to 10. Overall, I mean, this really is nothing more than a 5 or a 6, I think, overall. But this show was saved by those two key matches. And those key matches were Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, which I thought was excellent. And I thought the men's Money in the Bank match was excellent until the finish. And the women's Money in the Bank match was pretty good, too. I wouldn't call it excellent, but, they certainly, the effort was certainly there, and there were some fun spots, so I would call that a good match. And then when I think of everything else on the pay-per-view, nothing else really stands out to me. Here's the problem, I think, with a lot of these pay-per-views. They all feel like TV matches. I mean, really think about some of these pay-per-views. How many times do you come away from it thinking, man, that really felt like a special match that you would not ordinarily see or that you just can't see anywhere else? We get so much television every single week. Part of the problem is that everything just feels like a Raw match or a SmackDown match. And I thought that was the case with a lot of the matches here on this pay-per-view. But those two matches, to me, saved the show from being a thumbs-down effort. I would give this a slight thumbs up on the whole. Not a great pay-per-view top to bottom, but good enough. It had its moments. And I want to find out what you guys think, because we're going to be taking some of your phone calls here momentarily. 989-282-SOLO. That's 989-282-7656. I do see some of the super chats coming in. My screen is going so fast, I can't see all the names, but I do see them coming in, so I want to say thank you. I appreciate the hell out of everybody who is throwing in super chats here in the live chat on YouTube. So why don't we go to your calls? Again, try to keep them limited to Money in the Bank if at all possible. I want to know what you guys think, and don't forget you could also vote in the poll. I'll be throwing the results up a little bit later on your screen. Thumbs up, thumbs down at Solomonster on Twitter. Hold on a second here. Let's go first. We'll take a call here from Jimmy in Virginia. You are on the air.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. What'd you think of
me?
I could hear you perfectly fine. What'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
I thought the pay-per-view was what really saved it for me was the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, man. Honestly, I've been watching wrestling since the Attitude Era and everything, and I've seen the Edge and Christian Hardy's ladder matches and all that, but I seriously think that was the very best ladder match I've ever seen.
Really?
In wrestling history.
Wow.
To be honest.
The best ladder match that you've ever...
Some of those spots were crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
some of those spots were crazy, man.
I agree. Listen, I agree there was some crazy spots in that match, but I mean, to call it the best ladder match that you've ever seen, I mean, that's some pretty high praise right there.
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. And I'm the guy who always tweets you and stuff like that. I tried to get in contact with you last time. You actually tweeted me back, said that you had got a lot of calls and stuff like that the last time.
Yeah, that was the problem. We went 5 hours, and there were people who were pissed off that I went 5 hours, but I tried to fit in as many people as I could, and it's just not always going to be possible. But I'm glad you managed to get through tonight, so that's cool.
Hey, wait, one more thing before I go, man.
Sure.
I was looking at right before you went live on your podcast. I was looking at some other YouTube podcast called Wrestling Inc. or whatever, and they were saying something that Stephanie had a meeting with the talent right before the pay-per-view and said that their AEW is competition and it's a war, pretty much. Like they were talking about on the podcast right before you went live or whatever. And I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the first I'm actually hearing of that. I did not hear that before. I don't know if any other websites are reporting it. I mean, Wrestling Inc. is a pretty trustworthy source, so I'll take your word for it. But if that happened, look, it's not shocking at all. We know AEW is competition. And AEW does not want to position themselves that way. They're trying to play it cool. You know, we're not trying to compete with anybody. We're just trying to do our own thing. And that's the right attitude to have. They cannot try to be competition to WWE. They cannot try to do what WWE does. That's why every time they talk about how we're going to have rankings and wins and losses are going to mean something, you know what? That's exactly what they need to be doing. And I can't sit here and tell you that AEW is going to be some big success. But what I like about it is that they're trying things, or they say that they're going to be trying things that WWE does not do. That's what we need. We don't need another WWE clone. The reason that TNA fails so many different times in their history is because for so many different times they tried to be WWE light, right? They were giving you the same exact thing that you see every Monday night. People are sick of that. That's why viewers are fleeing. They don't want more of what WWE is doing. They want WWE to change and take more risks and try new things. So any promotion that comes up that is willing to do that, I'm all for. And as far as this whole notion of competition, of course they're competition. They're competing for talent. They're competing for the same talent pool. So if that really happened, if Stephanie did have him, and I don't know why it would be Stephanie is the one to have this meeting. She's the chief brand officer. So that's kind of weird. But if that really did happen, it's interesting, first of all. But, okay, well, you're not really telling us anything that we didn't already know. You know, the moment they got on TNT, the moment they got a cushy spot on cable, they instantly became competition. Now they have to deliver, right? That's going to be the challenge. And they're going to have their first chance next weekend with Double or Nothing. Let's go to Chicago. I believe we have Glenn on the line.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Pretty good, Glenn. How are you doing tonight? What'd you think of Money in the Bank?
I'm good. First of all, congratulations on 600. I wasn't able to attend your show, but congrats.
Thank you very much.
So after the show, I've had some time to think about it now, but my first instinct after the show went off was, man, I can't wait till next year's Money in the Bank when the bell rings and the locker room empties and you get 50 men in a Money in the Bank ladder match, because what's stopping them? No disqualification. You could just have Brock Lesnar come in during the match. I think they should have had some segment that said, look, we'll find a replacement. That way it gave the reason to have someone come in, not just, hey, here's someone coming in and crashing the party for no reason because he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Brock Lesnar goes, and again, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. I think, and we'll find out tomorrow night, because I suspect Brock will be on Raw, and we'll get some more clarity about when he might be cashing in. But the rumor has been that it's going to be Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins in Saudi Arabia for the Universal Championship. And so if that's the case, since remember what they told us when we became the Authority a number of months ago, what a joke that turned out to be. They did say to us that they were getting rid of the automatic rematch clause. So, in theory, there would be no reason for Brock Lesnar to be getting a rematch for the championship unless he somehow became either the number one contender, and he doesn't wrestle enough to become the number one contender, or he cashes in his briefcase. So, I think that's really, plain and simple, the only reason why we saw what we saw tonight. Let's go to CJ. I believe he's on the line.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, man.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. CJ is one of the longtime supporters of the Sound Off, so I'm glad you were able to get on the air. What's your question?
Oh, thank you. First, to comment on what you said before the first caller, that you think a lot of these matches are just like what we get out in Raw or SmackDown. I think you're right. I was thinking that the other day, just minus the commercials.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? But here's the thing: we get commercials here tonight. If you watch the pre-show, anyway, even during the pay-per-view,
but
they
not
still
the middle matches.
No, that's true. Well,
pre-show, you're right. You're getting technical, but you're right.
Yeah, no, on the pre-show, we have commercials, and during the pay-per-view, we have commercials. Not in the middle of the matches. That's true. But no, I mean, that's just how I feel about it. You watch a lot of these pay-per-views, and that's just the way it comes across. These matches don't really feel any different commercials aside, than what you would see on a typical Monday night or a typical Tuesday night. And your pay-per-views, honestly, should never feel unimportant in that way. I think that's a big problem. Let's go to Kyle. You're on the line.
Hi there.
Hey.
So
we're moving along. We're moving along here. So what's your thoughts or questions on the pay-per-view tonight?
Well, I wanted to bring it back to the women's Money in the Bank match. First of all, I want to say I'm not the biggest fan of Bayley. That said, I was rooting for her to win her match because I do see a lot of potential with that character, especially being Miss Money in the Bank. Just thinking about the ultra squeaky clean Bayley with the Money in the Bank contract, something that's within the rules yet can be argued is somewhat of an underhanded means to a quick title win. I just thought that a lot of character development could have come about, and, would she cash in cheap on a face, or would she call her shot like something RVD did or Cena did, So for her to just do the sort of quick shock cash in the same that Alexa did last year, I thought was a little bit underwhelming. Sure, it did make her feel really relevant for the night, but overall, I kind of felt like it was short-term booking as opposed to something that could have been.
Oh, I think he got disconnected by accident, but he made his point, and that's a great point that you made. In that they did the same thing with Bayley that they did with Alexa last year. That's honestly something I hadn't connected that and put two and two together. So I think that's a great point. But I think it was important for Bayley to get a big win like that tonight because she's done a whole lot of nothing. I mean, aside from winning the women's tag team titles with Sasha, which I know meant a lot to them, and that was a really big deal to them. She has not done much of anything during her run on the main roster. Bayley has been completely just put on the back burner completely since she's been called down from NXT. And so for her to win the Money in the Bank and cash in tonight, again, the crowd reacted, not during her promo, but in celebration and everything, the crowd was behind her, and it was a great moment for her. But the key is going to be in the follow-up. Does she lose the championship on TV this week? You got to think Charlotte's getting that belt back in the not-too-distant future. Maybe not this week. But the question now becomes, how long can she hold on to that championship, and can she go on a run where she can successfully defend, as Kofi has done so far, against a lot of different people? That really, to me, is going to be the biggest question of all. Let's go to Jordan in D.C. Jordan, you are on the air.
Oh, what's up, Solomonster?
What's going on?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to comment on Rollins and Styles. I don't know. I guess it's because I set my expectations so low with Styles and Nakamura and stuff like that. But I was really blown away by their match. But I got a question about WWE's production, because I really wasn't watching WWE during the Attitude Era. So I heard your sound off last week about how 20 years ago, they had their highest rated show. So I went back and watched that show on the network, and the production of it was so dark and grimy. It looked like it could be chaotic, like anything could happen. Do you think part of WWE's problem today is that the product just looks too polished, like it's too good looking, almost gorgeous for you to think of any carnage or chaotic situations happening?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a great point. And actually, I think of all people, and I'm not always his biggest fan, but Eric Bischoff tweeted something similar a couple of weeks ago, I think, that WWE's product looks too polished for his liking. I do think there is something to be said for having a kind of a grittier, gritty is probably better than grimy, look to some of the shows. A lot of people, myself included, were hoping that that's what they had in mind for ECW when they relaunched ECW back in 2006. Is that they would really try to make it look and feel like the old ECW. And they didn't. And I'm not going to say that's the reason why ECW failed and didn't work out, but you would hope that in a situation like that, they would try to make it feel and look a little bit different. WWE has the best production in the world of any wrestling company anywhere in the world. They have and New Japan's is not bad at all, but they have the best production, the best equipment, the best people. Not always. Some of these camera shots and camera angles are actually some of the worst in wrestling. But in terms of their production values overall, they're the best. I agree. I think they're a little too polished sometimes for their own good. And I think, I don't know what you do. Do you do you degrade the visual quality of your shows? I'm not sure. Do you have a different show, maybe that looks grittier than Raw and SmackDown does? Again, I don't know the answer to that. But the short answer, I think, is yes. I think it is oftentimes a little too flashy for their own good. And before we get to the next caller, I just want to give a shout out. I know I missed there's a whole bunch of super chats here that I haven't had the chance to go through, but shout out to John Kiernan and the boys from the Armchair Bookers podcast for the super chat on YouTube. I very much appreciate that. Right now we have Garrett. I believe Garrett is on the line. Garrett?
Hey, it's good to be back, Solomonster.
Glad to have you.
So I didn't really watch Money in the Bank. I elected to watch the final episode of Game of Thrones, which, looking back on it now, it looks like they both had disappointing endings. So
no spoilers.
As far as no spoilers at all. I'm just gonna say basically basically that. So as far as what I found out, Becky Lynch lost the SmackDown belt so soon. I'm just curious, when do you think she's gonna lose the Raw belt? Do you think she's gonna hold it for a year, or is she gonna drop to someone like Lacey Evans within SummerSlam time periods?
Yeah, I don't think she's going to hold it for a year. I think she'll lose it and she'll get it back. Supposedly they're already thinking of opponents for her for WrestleMania next year. Is it going to be Lacey? Well, I guess she would be the most obvious option. Obviously, after tonight, the feud is going to continue. They have high hopes for Lacey. And of course they do, because she fits the mold of exactly the kind of person they would want to push. She's a tall, athletic blonde. Who's very, how shall I put this? Her features are very pronounced, but she's a tall blonde. And whether you're a tall blonde or a short blonde, Charlotte, Alexa, many others we've seen over the years, it seems like Vince McMahon and WWE have a type that they like. And not taking away anything from Lacey, she actually is a pretty good athlete, and she showed some promise in NXT. I just think she was called up way too quickly. So does she lose it to Lacey? I think Lacey would be a likely option, but I don't think she holds it for a year. And here's the thing. I wouldn't have her hold it for a year, because there is something to be said for the chase. Stone Cold never had that many long title reigns. In fact, he lost his championships. In a lot of cases, he lost his championships pretty quickly after he won them, because the real draw was the chase. Whether he was chasing Rock, Undertaker, he lost it to Kane and won it back the next night. I think there's something to be said for people wanting to see the babyface kind of climb back and win the championship back. So maybe it wouldn't be Lacey who I would have her drop it to. I don't have the roster in front of me right now. I was going to say Ember Moon and Becky could make for a good feud at some point, but, Ember's on SmackDown. But then again, that never stopped them with this wildcard bullshit from having people cross brands, so I guess you could do that if you wanted to. Go to Tyler in Wilmington, Delaware.
Hey, Solomonster. It's Tyler, back from yesterday.
Good to have you back. I'm surprised you made it through. We got the lines are completely jammed. You've got Lady Luck.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't lucky enough to get second place, but it's okay. I waited.
What'd you think of the pay-per-view?
I thought it was a good pay-per-view, but the main event just kind of ruined the whole thing for me, honestly. I really only tuned in for 3 matches. That was the Women's Money in the Bank match, the Universal Championship, and the Men's Money in the Bank match. Everything else is just kind of there. You know what I mean?
And of those matches, which was the one that you liked the most?
The most, I would say, probably was the Universal Championship match. That match I felt was really great. We got a really good finish out of it. The Women's Money in the Bank match, I feel like it was good, but they had a few spots in there that was not my thing. And then the Men's Money in the Bank match, Lord. I find it so funny how WWE has the goal to tell us that they're going to make all these changes. They're going to give us this. They're going to give us that. You're the authority now. And then they go and they give us the same person every single time in that same top spot. They have Ali. They have Ricochet. They have Drew McIntyre. They have so much talent in that one match. Not even that, the whole roster. But for some reason, we keep circling back to Brock Lesnar. I just don't understand it. It infuriates me. And then they wonder why they're losing viewers. So, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was my issue with the match, is that everybody knows Brock is part-time. He pops up a handful of times each year. You've got so many guys in this match, I mean, literally killing themselves, actually breaking their backs. I felt for Balor,
Exactly.
and I felt for Balor especially, because he took some bumps that were really scary. But him and Ali in particular, I mean, everybody, gets banged up in these matches. But them in particular really got beat up. And then, again, to have this guy run it at the end, in the last 30 seconds, and get the win for what will probably just end up being a championship match in Saudi Arabia, to me is just, it just feels like a slap in the face. And made for...
It is.
Yeah, and it made for a very, like you said, a very, in my opinion, disappointing ending.
You know what? It's them slapping you in the face, and they're doing repeatedly because they know you're going to do nothing about it. They know that you're going to tune right back in the next show to watch it to see if something else is going to change, and guess what? It never does. So I'm actually glad AEW's right around the corner. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm quitting watching, but this is why AEW's here. We actually have another option to watch. Just all other options. I watch New Japan all the time, but we have another company coming around the corner that could potentially give them a rival to do better. But at this point, it's like, do you even trust them with this product anymore after they keep on giving you this bullshit? I don't know. I'm asking you. Like, even if AEW starts doing numbers like 1 million, 2 million, probably like a year from now, I'm not saying like right away, do you trust WWE with the rest of that product going forward?
No, I mean, they haven't really done much to win over my trust. But, from experience, Vince McMahon seems to be at his best when his back is up against the wall. And I keep harping on this whole AEW thing. I don't know why people would want to see it fail. I just don't. For the life of me, I just cannot understand, even if you're not a fan of Cody and the Bucks and all of them, if you have no plans at all to even watch any of their shows, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to watch the shows. But you should at least feel like, man, I want that company to do well. I want that company to succeed. I want their numbers to be high enough where they really make an impact and light a fire under Vince McMahon's ass. Because until somebody comes along and does that, and maybe it's not AEW. Maybe they're not the great hope that everybody thinks they're going to be. But until somebody comes along and does that, nothing is going to change. Vince McMahon does not want to be embarrassed. He does not want to be shown up. Money-wise, creative-wise, whatever the case may be, the last thing he wants is for somebody else to come along and do what he does and do it better. And get mainstream buzz around them if they can somehow, manage that with TNT. That's the last thing he wants. He doesn't want to get embarrassed like that. He doesn't want to be shown up. Because to him, he's got the greatest show on earth. Nobody can do what he does. That's what he thinks. So I'm hoping somebody comes along like an AEW and can start to find some real success. And it really causes him to reevaluate what he's doing with his product. And maybe then, maybe, still got 3-hour Raws. But maybe at that point, things can get a little bit better. That's my hope anyway. Let's go to Dylan in Stamford, Connecticut. You are on the air live.
Hey, Solomonster, how you doing? Congrats on 600, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. What did you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
I thought it was good. Besides the ending, I actually thought overall it was a good pay-per-view. My question's about the AJ Styles Seth Rollins match. With feuds going on way too long in this company, this seems like a one and done, and this is the one time I wouldn't mind going a couple more pay-per-views with this. With Seth going against Brock, do you think they're going to come back to this relatively soon?
It doesn't feel like that to me, honestly. I mean, it really felt like a one and done for now. I was shocked they went to this match now. I thought, AJ just switched brands, and we've not seen this match before. And so it'll maybe SummerSlam. I thought they would build to it. And then the first pay-per-view coming out of WrestleMania, they go right into it. And they gave us a clean finish. Now, I'm not one to sit here and argue and complain about a clean finish, and I thought it was a great match tonight. But it did feel like, well, AJ had his match. He lost. And that's it. And now they move on. And where AJ goes, you can kind of get a sense if you look at it's kind of spoilerish, I guess, but if you look at the live event advertising, you see that, for example, in July, I think possibly even at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, in July, they are advertising a championship match of Seth Rollins, I hate to say it, against Baron Corbin. And it looks like AJ may get into a feud with Drew McIntyre. Now, AJ and McIntyre may go out there and they may light it up. They may go out there and have some great matches. But I can't really say either one of those programs is overly exciting to me. So my sense is they're going to get away from it, and eventually they may come back to it. And maybe when they come back to it, AJ may be on the winning end of it. But yeah, it definitely felt to me, for now anyway, like a one and done. Let's go to Adrian in North Carolina.
What's going on, Jason?
What's going on, man? What'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
How about that new era in that young upstart Brock Lesnar, huh?
Yeah. I think he's got a great career ahead of him.
Great future. But in all seriousness, though, I've tried to find some positives about what's been going on with the main roster, and I'm normally able to find some. It's getting really, really hard to do that now.
Well, it's been that way for a while. I don't know that it's all that different. I mean, it's kind of been this way for some time, I think.
I mean, you're right, but now it's just like it's like I can't even make excuses anymore and say that even though this happened, we've got this and this. I can't do that anymore. It's to the point that I don't even watch the main roster that much anymore unless I'm at somebody's house and it just happens to be on.
Yeah. I mean, you're not right. And thank you for the call. You're not wrong. I mean, I hear that from people all the time. I can't tell you how many people say to me, even when I did the 600th show the other night, I got everybody congratulating me and saying all these wonderful things. And some people have been listening to my show since the beginning, 2007. That's a long time. And they'll say, dude, I'm at a point now where I just listen to you. Or I listen to other podcasts. I listen to other YouTube shows. I find you guys more entertaining than I do WWE when I put it on TV. And I mean, look, I love hearing that. I think it's cool and I appreciate that. But it's also kind of sad that people tend to now, in a lot of cases, find their enjoyment more from shows like this and sort of commiserating with other people like we're doing tonight. We're taking calls and we're hearing from you guys. And we're all part of the same circle. And people have just given up. In some cases, they're not even watching the shows anymore. So I hope when a new promotion sprouts up, they'll at least give them a shot. And people haven't totally given up on wrestling just because of WWE. There's still a lot of great wrestling out there. MLW, I don't cover them nearly enough. They may be maybe the best wrestling show consistently on TV every week. I hear that from multiple people. New Japan, Ring of Honor doesn't have a whole lot of buzz around them right now, but they've got some great, talents in that company. But it's true, as WWE goes, so goes the rest of the wrestling business. What's the old expression? I forgot the expression now. It's like rising tides raise all ships or something like that. It's true when it comes to WWE. It really is. I wish they were putting out a more exciting product because then it would get more people excited to watch wrestling. Let's get to Austin in Minnesota.
Hi, man. So I just got a quick question. My question being is, if they wouldn't have gone the Brock Lesnar route with him winning Money in the Bank ladder match, what would have been the better way for them to book this match between him and Seth Rollins at the Saudi Arabia show, in your opinion?
If they did not do the Money in the Bank thing that they did tonight?
Correct.
Well, I mean, if that's their destination, then the easiest and quickest way was to do what they did tonight, to put the briefcase on him. Because it doesn't make any sense to just gift him a championship match unless he's going to wrestle on TV. You want to know what I would do? If it were up to me, look, the guy's been back in the company since 2012. Now, I thought, and look, maybe they'll still do this, they would switch Brock over to SmackDown. And on that very first Fox show in October, one of the things they would promote going into that first show is the fact that new SmackDown roster member Brock Lesnar is going to wrestle on SmackDown for the first time in the last time Brock wrestled on SmackDown was probably 2004? And it would be a really big deal because he has not had a TV match since he came back to the company in 2012. So I think that would be the smart thing to do. But if they're not going to do that, put him on TV. Put him on TV. Let him have a match that he wins. It's a number one contenders match of some kind, whether it's a singles match. They love doing their multi-man matches. You know, you can build a big triple threat, fatal four-way, or whatever kind of match you want to build with the top stars on the Raw brand and have Brock win. And you would hope that him actually wrestling on TV, if they promote it, can maybe pop a big number. And at least then it would make sense for him to actually get a championship match. And it would mean something, because when the hell does this guy wrestle on TV? He doesn't. So when he does, the hope is that people would want to tune in. Eddie in New York, you're on the air.
Solomonster, what's going on there, bro?
Is this the Eddie who tries to get me drunk at every meetup I have here in Brooklyn?
Yes, it is, man. Yes, it is.
I was missing you from the last one. You weren't there.
Hey, man, I couldn't make it there. I was at work, so yeah, man. I wish I could have gone there, but unfortunately, no, I couldn't. But I'm here now, though. I'm here now.
You are here now. So what'd you think of the pay-per-view? You sound a little. I don't know if it's your connection or what. You sound kind of robotic here. But go ahead and ask your question.
Let me get. I think, the pay-per-view was okay, man. But I popped for Belly. I'm not going to lie. I went fucking crazy for Belly because they've been doing her dirty for so long. I mean, they really, really fucked her up and ruined her, man. And then to just see her just win, it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I actually felt really happy for her. I said this earlier because she's had to eat a lot of shit since she's come to the main roster. And I think in some cases she gets unfairly, when she gets booed sometimes on TV. I totally get it because the booking of her has been horrendous. And people have not been given any reason to give a shit about this woman. So it's hard to argue. I mean, what other reaction would the fans possibly give her? But I feel bad for her. It's not any fault of her own. What the hell did she ever do? So she can only do what they kind of tell her to do. And tonight was a cool moment for her. And if it ends on Monday or Tuesday or whatever, then it ends. But, at least for one night, she got a nice pop and a nice reaction, and I was happy for her. Jay in Virginia, you're on the air.
Hey, Jason, what's going on, man?
What's going on is we're talking Money in the Bank tonight. We got a lot of differing opinions on this show. So what'd you think of it?
Typical mixed bag. Like, I think it was a case of where the main event, fantastic match, but the end result just kind of fucked it up for me,
Well, if you had to go back and single out one match from the show tonight that you felt delivered, and that when it was over you felt, all right, that was a great match. Which one would it be?
Styles and Rollins.
Yeah, I would agree.
I just wanted to say something quick about Becky Lynch. Does it seem like to you that, not that they've ruined her, but they kind of have? I mean, if you look at where she was in October, November, December, and then she goes on to win the biggest match, essentially, in WWE Women's history, and then not even a month and a half later, she drops one of the titles.
Yeah, that surprised me because everything I've heard is about how, this Becky 2 belts thing is really getting over and her merchandise is selling and all this stuff. And then, the first pay-per-view since WrestleMania, and they take one of the championships off of her. So I found that. But for a fact that if it was Roman Reigns or somebody like that who was selling a lot of merch and selling a lot of T-shirts, they wouldn't make a single change. It's like John Cena. Why didn't they turn him heel all those years? Well, he sells too many T-shirts. They didn't have any balls, so they never turned him. They came close, supposedly. In 2012, John Cena even had new music made up. He had new gear. He thought he was turning heel, and then they got cold feet, and they didn't do it. So this is a company that really doesn't have any balls. But Becky Lynch, well, I guess, can't have her hold the championships for more than a month. So I don't know that I can't sit here and tell you that they fucked her up, because she still gets a great response when she's out there. She gets loud chants of Becky and Becky 2. Well, now I guess it'll be Becky 1 belt, but she's still getting reactions from the live crowd. It's not being reflected in the ratings, but it wasn't being reflected in the ratings before WrestleMania either. There just is no one person who's a great draw, and I think she lost her foil in Ronda Rousey. There's nobody on this roster right now who can match what she had in an opponent, in a rival, with Ronda. And you're really starting to see that now. You're feeling it now. Without Ronda Rousey around, I said before on the podcast, like Batman and the Joker. They need each other. They can't kill each other off because you got to have Batman and the Joker. That's kind of what Ronda and Becky were to each other. Now one of them is gone. You got Becky against Lacey. Yeah, excuse me if that's not exactly a unequal footing with the feud we had before with Becky and with Ronda. Let's go to Michael in Houston, Texas.
Hey man, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for calling.
No problem. Anytime.
What's your question?
My question, first I want to give my thoughts on the show. I thought it was a little mixed, kind of leaning towards the negative, and that ending kind of soured me a little bit. And like my question is, what could they honestly do with Brock as Mr. Money in the Bank? Because I don't see him as someone who would really need the briefcase. The rumor I heard is that he's going to cash in and like they're going to have a match at the upcoming Super Showdown between him and Seth Rollins. That's at least what I heard.
Well, I mean, you would have heard it here because I just said that like 5 minutes ago. So yeah, I mean that is the report. The rumor is that the championship match in Saudi Arabia is going to be Seth against Brock. I don't foresee them switching the title there. I think it would be ridiculous for them to take the championship off Rollins and just put it back on Brock Lesnar. So I would say that you are correct in that assumption. I think that's where he's going to cash in, and we may find out on Raw tomorrow night. He may do the in advance cash in, where he announces far in advance when he intends to cash in his brief. I don't put it this way. I don't see Brock after a championship match with Seth running down to the ring and going to the ref, hey, I want to cash in Money in the Bank, basically doing what Seth did to him at WrestleMania 31. I don't see Brock doing that. So I think we may get an announcement tomorrow night about that. Let's go to Brandon in Orlando, Florida.
Hi, Solomonster. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I didn't get to watch the pay-per-view, but I did see the highlights. Wasn't really too fond on it, and since I saw the ending, my question is, do you think that as of now, the Money in the Bank match is a joke since, like, I think a few years ago, they made Ellsworth get the briefcase for Carmella, and now Brock, unannounced, just pops in and gets the belt. So is it a joke now compared to, like, the Royal Rumble and all the other special matches?
I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a joke. I mean, they kind of go to the same finish so many times that after a while it doesn't really have the same, I don't know, it just, the cash-ins now, they all sort of blend together to me. You know, when I think back to some of the great all-time cash-ins, I think of Edge, you know, that first time. I think of CM Punk had some, and obviously Dolph Ziggler, and some of the cash-ins like that. Now they all just sort of, I don't know, they sort of blend. You know what? Randy Orton's another one. The one they did at SummerSlam 2013 when they did the whole big swerve at the end there, I thought that was actually pretty genius of them. Now, I don't know. None of them really feel overly special, so I guess you'd be right to say that. Let's go to Daniel. We'll take a few more here. Daniel in Toronto. We have an international listener.
Hey, Solomonster. How's it going?
I'm doing great. We are live, and I just watched the pay-per-view, and I've got my drink here in front of me, so I'm doing splendid. How about you?
I'm doing great. Just finished the pay-per-view about a few minutes ago. It was actually pretty good. I can understand how there'd be a bit of like a mixed response to it, especially with the ending to the men's Money in the Bank match. My question is, what would you be more excited for going forward? Bayley and Charlotte or Lacey and Becky?
Bayley and Charlotte, Lacey, or honest. I mean, of those choices, I'd probably say Bayley and Charlotte. You know, I mean, there's obviously history there with them, the whole horsewomen thing, and at least I don't know, anything with Lacey right now is not exciting to me. So I'm automatically going to say Bayley and Charlotte because I just cannot get into the whole Lacey Evans thing right now. So there's your answer. Antoine in North Carolina, you're on the air.
What's up, Solomonster?
What's going on? What'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight? Hello?
At first, Hello? Yeah, at first I enjoyed the women's match. Then after that, kind of thought the show was kind of boring, but then it picked up when Bailey won the title. I enjoyed the show, the rest. Thought it was okay.
All right. You got any specific question here before I let you go?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think they could swerve us and have Brock cash in on Kofi and win the WWE title using the wild card rule or something?
See, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. Boy, that would you want to talk about an uproar. I mean, for all the people who are upset just that Brock won, thinking that he's going to cash in and challenge Seth, and there's a lot of people very upset about that. The idea that he would cash in on Kofi, who he has one match against already. He actually wrestled Kofi in Japan on a TV special many years ago, and he just destroyed him. He demolished him. And the idea that Brock would do the same again and just take Kofi's championship away from him, the uproar, I can only imagine. I can only imagine the anger that people would have. I certainly hope that doesn't happen. Although, you know what? That would be one way to get him on SmackDown. So that what I just got done talking about. They want to have him wrestle on that first SmackDown show on Fox. You got to get him on the brand somehow. You can get him on the brand any way you want to. But I guess that would be one way to do it. If he won the championship. I hate this wild card bullshit with people from Raw challenging for SmackDown titles or people from SmackDown challenging for Raw titles. You're either on one brand or the other. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to have a brand split, have a fucking brand split. I mean, am I wrong in thinking this? Am I overthinking this? I mean, I don't know. All I'm asking for is a little bit of common sense. Is there anybody in this world, is there anybody in this company that has any fucking common sense? Why are Raw people challenging for SmackDown championships? Why? Because this old fucker came on television one week and said, "Wild card rule, pal. I'm a genius, pal." And people are supposed to follow along and be into this. None of it makes any sense. It's like he came up with it before he walked out there to go on TV. If he doesn't pay attention to his own product, why the fuck should we? Jack. Let's go to Jack. Jack is calling from Cincinnati. You're on the air.
Hey, Jason. It's actually Jake, by the way.
Oh, Jake. Well, you can blame Noah for that. He thought your name was Jack.
You got it.
Any
I thought
chance,
the show was pretty decent.
Well, any chance I could throw him under the bus? You know, I can't miss that chance.
Of course.
What's your question?
Yeah, I thought the show was pretty decent overall. I didn't really like the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match as much as I was hoping to. My one question I had, though, was why do you think they keep going back to Brock? Personally, this kind of goes back to a point you talked about on your show a lot. I think there's just not that many characters in WWE right now at all. You maybe have Elias and some of those more outlandish characters, but at the end of the day, you see all these gifs from the Attitude Era about just characters, not in-ring performance, and you don't really see that anymore. And I think that's why they have such an over-reliance on Brock that, you know, yeah, he's a big guy, but that destructive nature is his character, and really no one else outside of maybe two or three guys that, like Elias, that mostly fall in the mid-card, have that kind of character going to them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's part of it, but you want to know the answer to the question. I think it has to do with what they're paying him. They're paying this guy a shitload of money. I don't know what the exact number is, but you know it's in the millions of dollars. And so they got to get a return on their investment. So what do? They keep going back to him. There's your answer. That's what I think is good. More than anything else. It's not just that he's a character, he has an aura about him. He does. That's true. That's all true. But he's being paid a lot of money. You're not going to pay Brock Lesnar millions of dollars to sit at home and shoot deer and hunt moose and fuck Sable. Although that is it's a great way to be paid and live life. But they want to get a return on their investment. So they keep bringing him back and they're putting him in championship matches because they're paying him so much money. And they're going to pay him even more money when his contract comes up because the last thing they want is him going to AEW. Because you know AEW would want to snatch him up in a heartbeat. And he would entertain the offer because he doesn't give a shit about WWE. Think he's loyal to WWE? Really? He's loyal to one thing. I think you know what that is. So that's why they feature him so much. Chris in Pensacola, Florida. Actually, I think we just lost Chris. Hold on a second. Here we go. Chris, in, I believe Pensacola is the hometown of Roman Reigns. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's the hometown of Roman Reigns, too. Hey, Solomonster, first I want to say congrats on 600 episodes. I've been watching your show for a long period of time.
Thank you.
So, but my question is for you. I tried to ask you on the 600 episode when I did a super chat, but my question is, would you ever decide to face Greg Cherry for the Wrestling Trivia Championship that he's been advertising for a while now? I've emailed you about it, and nobody's ever gotten an answer from you exactly.
Yeah, I've had a few people email me about this. Greg, what's his name? Greg Cherry, I believe his name is. Greg Cherry fellow, apparently some kind of trivia champion or something. And people want me to challenge him for the championship. Look, I am certainly open to any challenge at all times, if I could fit it in somehow. I don't know what's involved here. I don't know if it's a complicated thing, if it's a whole big deal. But if anybody is challenging me, I am certainly not one to turn down a challenge. And so I will leave it at that. We'll see what happens. Caleb in Louisiana, you're on the air.
What's up, Solomonster?
What's going on? What'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
There were a couple of good matches, but overall I was a little disappointed, especially with the ending.
What was the besides the ending? If there was one match that you really felt let down by, was it the main event? Was it a different match?
It was the main event.
Okay. So you were not...
Yeah.
Were you... did you at least think it was a good match until the finish, or just the whole thing you thought was just overall a disappointment?
I thought the whole thing was really good. There were a lot of really good spots. McIntyre was just rolling through everybody, killing them all, and I was really enjoying the show he was putting on, and everybody else especially. They were all killing themselves for it. And then, yeah, we all know what happened.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah, but my question is actually not about the main event. It's about the pre-show. I don't know if you touched on this. I tuned in a little late to the show, so I don't know if you had already spoken about it. But the pre-show match between the Usos and Rowan and Daniel Bryan, I could have sworn it was for the tag team titles. Were they, or am I just missing something?
No, they never announced that it was a title match, and I even said this when I did the predictions on 600. I was a little unsure myself, but if you look on the website, at no point did they make mention of it being, and even on TV, they never made mention of it being a championship match. So I just assumed that when they don't go out of their way to say that the championships will be on the line, you just sort of assume that it's non-title. And that probably should have been a tip-off that the Usos were going to win, although I was hoping, silly me, I was hoping the champions would win, even though it was a non-title match. But joke's on me, I guess. Let's go to Skylar? I think it's Skylar. Skylar in Idaho, you're on the air.
Yeah, it's Skylar. Hey, Solomonster.
What's going on, man? What'd you think of the... and by the way, before we get into your question here, a shout-out to all the people who are donating Super Chats, including John Falchetta in the Super Chat who just gave $2. I appreciate that. But go ahead, what's your question?
As for the show, I thought it was okay. Honestly, I'm kind of just burning out on the product. There's too much of it at this point.
Well,
my question...
You and everybody else, my friend. There's a lot of people I hear from who say the exact same thing.
Yeah. So my question is, instead of Brock coming out, why not have Bray Wyatt come out? I don't know if he would be attacking Ali, because I don't know with the Superstar Shakeup thing, like who's on what brand or what brand Wyatt's even on. But his last promo kind of hinted that he was really ready for a feud.
Yeah, and I thought about that, and somebody pointed out to me, and they're absolutely right. Bray and Joe. Well, I was going to say Bray had a kid. Bray didn't have a kid. His wife had a kid. Are they married? Are him and JoJo even married? I don't know if they're married or not. But anyway, Bray and JoJo had a child this weekend. A baby boy, I believe, named Nash, with a K, a silent K at the beginning. And no, I don't believe it was named after Kevin Nash. A lot of people have asked him about that. So they just had a child, and I thought, you know what? That's a great point. It would be awfully quick for him to have to get ready and come to the pay-per-view and if he's going to be in this match, the only outcome was that he had to win. But I'm not so sure Bray Wyatt in this new character needs to win a briefcase. And I'm not sure that would be the right thing to do with him. It would be a great moment for him to go off the air with a big win on pay-per-view, but this character, we haven't seen him on TV yet in the ring, but this character, just watching that last vignette, scares the shit out of me. So if they can sort of maintain that aura about him and keep him special, he doesn't need a briefcase. But I think the likelihood of him having been on the show tonight was slim, just because he and JoJo had their child this weekend. Let's go to Zach in Kentucky. We'll take a few more calls.
Hey, Solomonster, this is Zach, and I'm a huge fan of yours. Been a fan of yours since 2015.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot.
My question is about Bayley, and I'm so happy she won the championship. I was popping loud. But my question is, do you think she benefited big time since Sasha Banks basically took her ball and went home?
Oh, yeah. Oh, without question. And I think I even said that during the review. This felt to me, at least in part, like a message being sent to Sasha Banks. Like, look, this could have been you. And instead, we're giving it to your friend. Absolutely 100%. Without question, this was a message being sent tonight to Sasha Banks. And I don't know what her status is going to be. I don't know. Her staying out, I don't know if that benefits her. Because you have to think that until she comes back to work, if she's thinking, well, I'll just sit at home and, wait out the remainder of my contract, which supposedly her contract is not over until next year. But if she's sitting at home, she's not working. So they'll pull the same stuff with her that they're pulling with Dash Wilder and Luke Harper, and they'll just tack on months until she comes back. So to me, this is a never-ending situation here. She's going to have to come to some kind of resolution with this company, which is probably going to be her coming back to work. They're not going to let her go. But if she wants out, she can't just sit at home, because then they'll just tack months onto her contract. She's in a real pickle right now. She's got to really figure out what it is that she wants and just kind of swallow her pride and come back, because that's the only way that she's going to be able to get out of this contract is to come back to work. And just, I don't know if they're going to make her eat shit. I don't know if they'll give her a big push. If they've got a year left with her, year and a half, whatever it is, I think it would be dumb to make her eat shit. But at the same time, you got to set some kind of example. Otherwise, people are just going to be like, well, Sasha sat out for a month or a month and a half. She came back and got a big push. Well, shit, I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe they fine her. When Austin walked out of the company, he said that Vince McMahon, he had a meeting with Vince, and they came to an agreement, and they made up, and Vince said, I got to fine you. I can't just let this slide. You walked out on the company. He was going to fine him $650,000. And I think Austin was able to negotiate that down to $250,000. But they're probably going to have to do something along those lines. I don't see how they could just bring her back and, sort of put her right back into the thick of things. So what kind of example does that set? We've got a caller from Illinois on the line. What's your name and what's your question?
Hey, Solomonster, it's the one and only. Nice to finally talk to you.
Nice to have you on, my friend. A big supporter of the show. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so my question is, do you think Vince has the balls to hold on to Brock Lesnar's cash-in until the first episode of SmackDown on Fox for him to boost, to pop like a big rating?
He could. That's an interesting point. But again, if he's getting a championship match in Saudi Arabia, I assume that would be the cash-in. So I'm not sure how that would work. You can have Brock hold on to the briefcase until October because the guy barely ever fucking shows up anyway. You know what I mean? Maybe he'll have a match at SummerSlam. Maybe he won't. Maybe he stays off TV for 4 or 5 months and they bring him back and he announces in advance that he's going to cash in on that big first Fox show. That would be a huge hook for that first live show. Absolutely. That actually would not be a terrible idea. I'd prefer they do that over fuck Saudi Arabia's pay-per-view. Not the people over there. They're going to get a good show. You're getting Undertaker and Goldberg. I don't cry for the fans in Saudi Arabia. You're going to get a big attraction. But as far as, kind of wasting Brock's cash in on that show, fuck that. You don't have to waste it on a show in June. What's the harm in having him hold it for a few months? I like that idea. I think we have another Brock Lesnar question. This one from Adrian in North Carolina.
Finally back because we got disconnected earlier.
That's right. You are back. And actually, before I get to your question, I want to say, and I know I'm missing some people, and I will eventually see all of these super chats, and I appreciate all of you who are donating tonight. But shout out to Jake Winans, who donated via super chat tonight, as well as James Hollins, who is very disappointed that both briefcases get cashed in very quick. Well, obviously, he's not very happy that Bayley cashed in her briefcase tonight. But in any event, thank you for the super chat. But what's your question?
My question is, given where things are, and given that this Saudi show is pretty much a done deal, where do we go from here? And if we do go somewhere, is it really going to be worth the journey?
Are you talking about with Brock or just in general?
Just in general, because Becky lost one of her belts. I'm not sure if she's going to lose the other one. Brock, of course, be having Money in the Bank. Kofi and Seth's next challengers. I mean, like, given how writing has been and just basically how TVs have been, is it really worth us paying attention to the journey to see how all this is going to equal out?
Well, that's a good question. You have people who follow along with these, as you said, the journey with Becky and Kofi, and then it just seems like, sometimes it feels like things don't really matter, or they're coming up with these things on the fly, and it is hard to follow and kind of stay into these stories. Where they're going to go, I don't know. I have no idea. To answer that question, I'd have to get in the mind of Vince McMahon. And I think that's a very scary place to be. I don't want to be in the mind of Vince McMahon. Imagine the shit that is floating around this man's mind. Imagine if you were a psychiatrist and you were to get some couch time with Vince McMahon and say, listen, I want you to open up about all the experiences that you've had throughout your life and as a child. And can you imagine the stuff that would pour out of this man's head? I think that poor psychiatrist would need a psychiatrist by the time that was over. So what this guy is thinking, I don't know that he is. I think he's thinking on the fly, week to week. There's no long-term planning right now, so I couldn't even answer that question. Let's go to area code 757. You are on the air.
Hello.
Hello, 757.
Yeah, is this Solomonster?
Last I checked, it was. Yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay. I got a question about the Money in the Bank. First of all, I want to know why did the old school Raws go away? And also, I want to know why did WWE stop using different sets every month for pay-per-views, or at least use the same sets every year for the same pay-per-views, like each month, every year, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of the same Raw set for everything, every time you get a custom set, it's Mania. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, now, so you're talking about Raw, and as far as the Raw set, they've paid a lot of money for it. It's an HD set. They can adapt it, the screen, to look however they want it to look. And again, it's a huge investment for them, and they don't want to change it. I think the look of Raw has pretty much been the same since 1997. The screen is fancier. They've got their LED lights in HD and all that stuff. The basic look of Monday Night Raw has not changed in over 20 years. And so you wonder why people are just, they watch the show and it's like, man, this show just has a sameness to it that doesn't really change. As far as the pay-per-views go, I think it's just a cost issue. Why do you think they stopped doing pyro? It costs a lot of money. And it's not that they don't have the money for it, especially now. They got plenty of money. But to them, it's a big cost and it's not worth it. So they cut back on pyro, and all the sets have absolutely no creativity. I remember the scythes for the Backlash pay-per-views, the Royal Rumble when they were in Madison Square Garden. They had the mock little alley where people would come down that short aisleway, and They used to actually put a lot of creativity and a lot of thought into those things. And it's a shame that they really don't do that anymore. I do think it's something that's sorely missing from the product. I would actually very much agree with you on that. Now, we have a caller on the line from Mark Henry's hometown of Silsbee, Texas. Joseph, you're on the air.
Hey, this is Solomonster.
This is me.
What's going on, man? Hey, congrats on the 600.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hey, yeah. That was something, man. I wish I could have been there, but, work, college.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know you've been asked about the Money in the Bank. I thought the Money in the Bank was pretty... Yeah. The only thing I took away from it that I liked was that, Kofi's still the champ. And, I was so nervous when I saw Becky Lynch lose her title. I thought, oh, yeah, Kofi's losing his because you know how they view SmackDown. And I feel like Vince is blaming, all the ratings and stuff on SmackDown, but he's never going to blame Raw.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, Raw's his baby. Raw's his flagship show, and he's always going to have, I'm sure he's always going to have preferential treatment for it, so that's not really much of a surprise. So I would agree with you on that. Anything else here before, because we're going to be wrapping it up soon. Anything else before we move along?
Yeah, I just have one question. So, Brock came out, kind of ruined the main event, but, we can't change it. But I had a question. Everybody hates Baron Corbin, especially me. I can't stand him. But, he's been aligned with Bobby Lashley, and I actually wanted Bobby Lashley to be in the Money in the Bank. But do you think that some of that heat that Baron Corbin's getting is rubbing off on Bobby Lashley now, and now no one wants to see Bobby Lashley either?
Yeah, and I not only think it's rubbing off on Bobby Lashley, I think it's rubbing off on Drew McIntyre. And that, to me, is the saddest thing of all. And part of it is just, the booking and what they've done with him. I was really bullish, I guess would be the right word, on McIntyre when he first came back to the main roster. Because in NXT, he had a pretty good run. He was a babyface. And it was he's pretty over. Not the most over guy down there. And then he came to the main roster, and he was a heel. And after a while, they linked him up with Baron Corbin and Bobby Lashley, who also was linked up with Corbin. And the common tie here seems to be Corbin. Corbin is poison. There is something about Corbin that makes him easily hateable. And I do think that maybe one day they'll find a way to, monetize that or exploit that in a better way. But Baron Corbin is not an exciting personality on the show. Baron Corbin is not bringing in new viewers. If anything, I think he's repelling viewers away. So anybody you link him up with is going to suffer by default. So yeah, I think Lashley has suffered from that. I think McIntyre has suffered from that. And that's a real shame. Shout out to everybody who's still in the chat. We've had some more super chats. I want to say thank you to the Red Emissary of Darkness. That's quite the name there. Red Emissary of Darkness. And also to Joshua Hughes for your contribution. He says, rest in peace, Ashley Massaro. Very sad story. I talked about that on episode 600 of the podcast. There'll be a video going up on the channel about it as well tomorrow. The conversation I had with Kevin Castle from the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show, in fact, about Ashley Massaro. Just a terrible situation and what happened to her and the stuff that she claimed happened to her years ago in Kuwait when she was on a Middle Eastern tour for WWE. And just the whole situation is just awful and depressing. We'll take 2 more calls here and wrap things up, and then I'll flash the results of the Twitter poll. You can still vote on Twitter at Solomonster. Thumbs up, thumbs down on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view tonight. Right now, let's go to a fellow New Yorker. We have Ryan on the line. You are on the air.
Hey, Solomonster, what's going on? Just want to put you over real quick. Thank you for making work days go by pretty good. You and the fellas over at Wrestling Soup definitely make shitty work days go by well. But yeah, man, today's ending, with the Money in the Bank, Jesus Christ, that shit was brutal. Normally, you have some people that are excited for AEW, some people who are already shitting on the product without anything even airing. But if you're a wrestling fan, truthfully, and you're tired of WWE, you got to hope for the best with AEW because, WWE seems to just, focus on a couple of things for, a few months. and it's just tiring at this point. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's, you have that much television every week. It's gonna tire you out. I just hope they haven't tired everybody out to not give a chance to other promotions, unless you're watching Impact. And if you're watching Impact and I feel sorry if you're an Impact fan. Unless you're watching on Twitch, I guess you didn't have this issue the other day. I'm sure you've all heard about this. There was an Impact main event the other night. I think it was, Rich Swann against Michael Elgin, I believe, was the main event. And so the main event begins, and there's about 25 minutes left in the show. They cut to commercial. This is on the Pursuit channel. They go to commercial in the middle of the main event, and they never came back. They literally showed commercials for the remaining 24 minutes of the show, and apparently it was the same 2 or 3 commercials over and over again. That was it. That was the main event. They cut the commercial, and they never came back. And Impact was forced to put out a statement apologizing for what had happened. I kind of feel sorry for them because there's no way it was their fault. That totally had to be a Pursuit fuck up on their part. But it's just another, long line in the LOL TNA stories. And I joked with somebody on Twitter. I said, if they did that on a Raw every now and then, I don't know that I would mind so much. If they just took a break and never came back. I actually think it would improve the quality of the show on Monday night if they did that. Let's take one more call here. We will go to the state of Maryland, and we will get Ryan from Rockville, Maryland. You are on the show.
Salutations, Solomonster. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing quite well here on this, I guess, Monday morning it is now.
Yes, how time flies by when WWE inevitably just drops the ball. But I just want to say the show overall I thought kind of a mixed bag. Not even really necessarily mad about the ending, just disappointed. But I had a couple of quick questions, which is I would say Bayley had probably the feel-good moment of the show. Are you a fan more, though, of quick cast-ins, or are you a fan of more long, drawn-out storylines? And, or rather, you should say for casting in, because this is the third time in 4 years we've had a cast-in on the same show, with Ambrose casting in on Rollins in 2016, then last year with Alexa and Nia Jax, and then this year with Bayley and Charlotte. Or are you more of a fan of when they just kind of fill the time over time, and then you just get a shocking moment out of nowhere?
I mean, it really depends on the story. I mean, if there's a great angle or a great story, then I guess I'm all for it. But generally speaking, I tend to like it when they don't just blow the gimmick in one night. You can milk it, whether it's a week, if it's a month, if it's 6 months. It's a great device to be able to use, and I don't think you need to blow it all in one night. So generally speaking, I'm not really a big fan of it.
True. And I guess I just had one more little quick question, but I don't know to get your thoughts on the whole situation with Pac and Adam Page. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that whole kind of gigantic dumpster fire.
Yeah, I've been following that story as well, and it's tough because my first thought was it's a work, and I know I didn't hear what he had to say, all of what he had to say, but I know Meltzer, who's very well connected, apparently, with the AEW side, talked about the situation on his radio show and said that it's not a work. There was a situation where Pac would not lose to Adam Page. Now, I don't know that Pac was supposed to lose, and I would not have had him lose. This match at Double or Nothing, I would have had Pac win. But apparently the situation was that it was less a matter of he's going to lose to Adam Page and more they really want to take wins and losses seriously. And it's important to get out of the gate with it and establish that wins and losses, unlike in other promotions, are going to mean something in AEW. And so if Pac wins, that would in theory put him in line for a shot at the AEW championship. And he would not lose in that situation. He takes being I think he's the Dragon Gate champion. He takes that very seriously. I don't think he's lost on any of the independent shows or anywhere he's wrestled since he's won that championship. So maybe he would have won at Double or Nothing, but then they'd have to make him a number one contender because they want people to take these wins and losses seriously. And that would have created a whole host of problems. So they decided to do the match overseas. They are going to release it apparently, I guess on YouTube, this week. So people will get the match they promised, but they're not going to get it in Vegas next weekend. And instead, there will be a suitable replacement. Now, we don't know who that person is going to be. I think Meltzer said that if they get the person they want, everyone's going to just forget about Pac, and it's going to be a big deal. And if it falls through and they don't get the person, then people are going to be very upset. And to me, there's only two names that make sense in that situation. One of which, of course, is Jon Moxley, who I would have expected anyway to be on that show, in even just like a brief cameo or something. Or there's only one other name. There's really only one other name that would make sense, and it's going to inspire a lot of hatred from some people, and it's going to inspire, I think, a lot of excitement from other people, and that's CM Punk. Now, CM Punk supposedly is doing commentary on some MMA show that same night. Logistically, I have no idea if he can make, let alone for a match. I mean, the guy hasn't wrestled a wrestling match in years. So I'm not even sure how likely that is. I think Moxley is a hell of a lot more likely than Punk is. I don't know who else could they drop in that position where people would go, wow, okay, you know what? That was a good replacement. That was a better match than we would have gotten with Pac and with Adam Page. I don't know. Maybe they strike a quick deal with New Japan. They could get like Ibushi or Okada on the show. That might do it. But otherwise, I don't know who else you put in there if not the obvious two names. Maybe it is a work. Maybe Pac will be there. But it sure doesn't seem like it. And I just I cannot understand if it's not a work. How do you not resolve this? You're a week away from your first show. You knew he was the Dragon Gate champion months ago when he was at that press conference. Was this just not discussed in advance? I can't even put all the blame on Pac. AEW, if this is a shoot and this is really what's going on here, this is negligence on the part of AEW to not get this shit put to bed long before your first pay-per-view. So I'm still skeptical. I'm not totally convinced it isn't a work. But it does sound like there may be some issues here, and there's really no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse for this not to be resolved long before you have your first pay-per-view. It just comes off as completely Mickey Mouse and completely Bush League. The last thing that AEW needs to come across as before they have their big show. Let us go to the results thus far of the Twitter poll, which you can continue to vote in. The poll will be up another probably 2-3 days at Solomonster on Twitter. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I want to know what you guys thought of the pay-per-view tonight. So far, here are the results. 46% of you voted thumbs up. 54% of you thumbs down. So that's a pretty... Let me shrink this a little bit so you can see how many votes we've had. Well, there you go. Over 2,500 votes so far. There'll be a lot more than that as the night goes on. But that's a pretty good sample size so far. Almost 2,600 of you have voted. And it's almost, it's a pretty even number. More thumbs down than thumbs up, but it's not overwhelmingly thumbs down. So I think you guys are pretty much in line with what I thought of the show. I would not have given it a thumbs down. I would have given it a very slight thumbs up. But that's not too far off, I don't think, from what I, thought the show was tonight. So, anyway, I want to thank everybody who has joined in tonight. This was not something I had really planned in advance. I was not planning to go live, but I realized, I've got the number. Everything is still active from the live stream with episode 600 the other night. So why the hell not? Let's do a little experiment. First time I've done a live pay-per-view review. We'll go live on YouTube. Maybe we'll do more of these. I don't know that I would plan to do this every single month. I will say this, though. I'm going to be in Vegas for all of the AEW stuff this upcoming weekend. Try to maybe get some interviews and just enjoy the weekend. And I will be back. I'm flying back to New York late Sunday. There will not be a sound off in its normal Sunday spot. That would be episode 601. My tentative plan, we'll see if this works out this way. My tentative plan is to go live early on Monday. So Memorial Day. You're all going to be home from work. You're not going to your barbecues until later in the day. Don't bullshit me. You'll be around. And so maybe around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So all you UK people, you don't give a shit about Memorial Day. That's about 3 or 4 o'clock where you're going to be. We'll see if maybe we'll go live on YouTube, and I'll do a Double or Nothing review and maybe take more of your phone calls on a special episode of the Sound Off 601 on Memorial Day. So that's my tentative plan as of now. And then, of course, it would push out to the feed and iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher and all those places as normal. So anyway, that is the current plan I am operating under. Again, thank you to The Ridge for their support. Definitely click that link, ridge.com/Solomonster, get 10% off a wallet from them. Thank you to everybody who donated Super Chats in the live chat tonight. I know I didn't get to everybody's name, but I did see all of them, and so I appreciate the hell out of all of you for it. Thank you very much. Until next time, be well, stay safe. Stay tuned here. If you haven't subbed to the channel yet, we are well on our way to 50K, so please do sub to the channel, and I will see you back here next time for more Sound Off. Until then, take care, everybody.
The Solomonster sounds off.
EC3 lost to Tyler Breeze. I tweeted, that sounds like something you would put on the tombstone of your career. They never should have called him up in the first place if they had no plans for him. I haven't seen a career fade this fast since Jussie Smollett.
The Solomonster sounds off. Available wherever you hear podcasts, including iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Want more content? Visit youtube.com/The Solomonster for sound off extras and more. And follow the Solomonster on Twitter @Solomonster.
Solomonster.
Put that cigarette out.
Solomonster sounds off.